Not, oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we're ready to go. Last one. Tim Davis. Oh, hello. Hi, Bodie. All right, Jeff Watson is signing his books. I've been trying all morning. No luck on the heat so far. All right. Thank you for serving. Oh, my gosh. You're an Air Force veteran? Tell us what you did and where you were stationed. Shh. Respect is in the house. Tell us.
I was in 27 and a half years.
Whoa.
Retired as a lieutenant colonel. I started out as a navigator in B-52s.
Oh, my goodness.
Went to pilot training, branched off into helicopters, flew them in combat rescue for a number of years. Got shot down in Vietnam as a combat rescue helicopter pilot.
Oh, my goodness. How was that landing?
Well, I didn't fall out of the sky. I was hovering in the treetops in the middle of the North Vietnamese Army while they were taking pot shots at me. I had 3 Huey gunships as I'm sitting literally in the treetops. 3 Huey gunships with rockets and miniguns. I was in a steep mountain canyon at the time, hoisting one guy that had been shot and out of the jungle. And I had these 3 gunships were coming head on, firing rockets and miniguns. I'm 150 feet off of the ground with 6 guys under me, and these guys are shooting miniguns at 4,000 rounds a minute, and rockets that are literally blowing up the trees right in front of me that I'm using for my position reference, and holding my position among the treetops, literally in the treetops. And the bullet that disabled my helicopter came in my door, missed my head by about 4 inches, and went through an oil cooler over my head. And I lost all my engine oil on a jet turbine engine and stayed there hovering for about 10 minutes until I got this guy up out of the jungle. Wow. And made it to a landing about 3 miles away in a clearing. So
wow. Stand up. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Remember, Sharon? Freedom's not free, is it? Respect. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Woo. Wow. Shot down, landed in a tree for all of our freedom. Thank you. All right. Give everyone just a second here. When Jeff's done signing autographs, you can come on up, okay, Jeff? All right. Give me 1 second here. And we're going to do a panel. Come on up. It's going to start off with just Jeff and I think. Oh, Tony. Tony, you can help us. Come on up. Bring your lunch with you. Come on up, Tony. Yes. Come on up. Okay. Do you think of anyone else you want to grab? This is top 10. I was trying to think. Who else would you like to join us? We're just going to talk for 20 minutes.
On do's and don'ts?
Do's and don'ts.
I'm going to pick on 2 people.
Okay. I picked Tony, so come on up, Tony.
Josh is in the room.
Come on up, Josh.
And then I'm going to pick on Steve Zahala as well.
Oh, okay. Steve Z, come on up. Yeah, we're going to pass the baton. Come on up, Tony.
I mean, those guys are both knowledgeable lenders.
Okay.
So, yeah, they've got...
Come on up.
They know what they're doing.
So what we want to do is just spend a few minutes on do's and don'ts, right?
Do's and don'ts.
Okay, so what are some things that responsible investor borrowers do to make the process run smoothly? Tony. Well, tell everyone, who you are and where you're from.
Fair enough. I'm Tony Williams. I'm with Mission Funding from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Randy Shelley, our owner, should be here shortly. His airplane has been delayed a couple of times, so I'm excited to see him here. We just started Dealmaker Chattanooga. Starts on Monday, so we're very pumped about that. So, Jim, thanks for that. Do's and don'ts for borrowers, just tell us everything. Like, let us know the good and the bad. I was talking to Mary Hart in a group last night. One of the questions I always ask is, what scares you about the project? I want to know what scares you about the project. Tell me. Because if you tell me you don't have anything that scares you, I'm scared. I want to know what's going on. And that way we can also help you and let you know what's going on. We know you're going to sell us the sunshine and rainbows and all the fun stuff. Tell us all the hard stuff. We might know. We might have been through it. We might be able to tell something, encourage you. Like Jeff Chahusky was talking about earlier, is like we want to be that partner with you. So just tell us all the good, the bad, but really let us know the bad so that we can dig in with you.
That question is solid gold, don't you guys think? What scares you about that property? That question alone is going to save somebody in this room. Mary Hart, when you think of a good do or a don't, what comes to mind?
Lots of don'ts. Lots of don'ts. Well, we were just having this conversation at our table about Jeff Chahusky's list of things. And one of the things that Randy, we were talking about wire fraud. So obviously that's a big one right now. And how do you make sure you're not going to be participating inadvertently in wire fraud? Tony had a good suggestion. He likes it when the title company or whoever's sending the wiring instructions sends everything but the last 4 digits. And then you have to actually call the title company or whoever the wiring instructions is sent from to get the last 4 digits. But don't just go off their number on their email. You have to actually Google them, make sure you've got the right number, call them several times to make sure people answer at all hours, because if they don't, it might not be a legitimate title company or something. So I thought that was a really great thing that actually Tony brought up. In terms of other do's and don'ts, I mean, the list is long. I didn't know I was going to be up here. I have to think about which one. Yeah. Oh, yeah, big one.
As a lender, I do.
Yeah, big one. So, yeah.
Jeff, what comes to mind for you?
Steve, I'm going to share the one that we talked about in that break session. I would, as a lender or as a borrower, I would not lend to somebody going into or in the midst of a divorce. And if I was a borrower, I would not be borrowing while I'm in the midst of a divorce, because there's a third person, the lawyer for the other person, that has the ability to completely ruin my life. Of course, counselor.
This is actually not divorce, but I totally, as a divorced woman myself, I totally agree with that one. And I am an attorney. I've represented lots of people and seen those issues. But the other one that has come up in my clients is estate planning. If you're in a relationship, borrower, lender, whatever, and let's say you're loaning money to a borrower, we should ask, what is your succession plan if you die? Because who's there to sign the releases? Who's there to pay off? Who's going to finish this job if you croak in the middle of the week, right?
The worst case, one of the worst cases.
It's pretty bad, because what can happen, in this one situation that I was the lawyer for, it wasn't a lender, but this gentleman had bought a large parcel of property that was subdivided into lots, and he bought it on seller financing. So the seller gave him, he gave a note back to the seller. The seller died, and my client, just wanted to release one lot so he could sell it and build out the infrastructure for the rest of the neighborhood. He couldn't get that lot released from the blanket mortgage because the seller died. There was no estate plan. None of the family wanted anything to do with it. We finally got him, my client, appointed as the personal representative, the executor, but he could never get any of the family to do anything. He had to walk away, I think, from the whole thing. It took 3 years, and he still couldn't resolve it. He just threw his hands up and said, let him have it. I'm not paying another dime. And he kept sending the checks, being a good buyer, and nobody would cash them. And there was no estate checking account, anything else. So you have to think about those things. If the other party of the relationship, if they were to die or become disabled, who will step in and make sure these things happen and not leave you in the lurch?
I'm changing my slide deck to include business continuity plan. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Hey, Josh Biggio here, Clearwater, Florida. I wasn't prepared for this, but I guess get the facts right up front. Like, get the ARV right. Is it in a flood zone or not? Get that right, because they're little things. Yeah, Florida, that's definitely
Flood
a thing.
zone.
Yeah, it comes up a lot. They're little things, but sometimes the little things, if they're off up front, start to decay the trust a little bit going forward. But that's definitely a do, and then a don't is just do what you say you're going to do. It's really that simple. Do what you say you're going to do, even on the little things, and it really builds trust on both sides. So.
Steve Zahala. I'm right outside Columbus area in Stoutsville. You're marrying the character and humility of who you're doing business with. We've only got so much bandwidth. Start with the low-hanging fruit. Is the person across from you somebody, and I think Jeff mentioned it well, you're marrying how they do their business when you do business with them. So start off with that and see if you want to even do business before. Everybody's worried about ARV. What about this person? I assure you, nobody in this room can outthink an evil person who wants to take your money if they are that evilly involved. So do your background. We talked about divorce. Do they have a substance abuse issue that you know about? Maybe they had it in the past. Maybe you should talk about it. Ask those hard questions if they had issues from years ago, because that's who you're kind of marrying during the process of the transaction. So make sure you're good with that, and usually everything will fall into place. And I love Jeff's comment as he is being a consultant, but the upside of that is he's finding out about problems as early in the deal as possible. I have a problem I can't overcome. Let's talk about it now rather than find out we got to talk about it in court. It's way easier earlier.
Oh, that one more thing. Both parties should make it as easy as possible on the other one. Like, we get a lot of good deals because we can close quickly. We take out some of the red tape where we can, and it's still kind of prudent, and make it as easy as possible for them. But we want the same to come back to us. Like, we don't want to chase down payments or, sorry, I lost my checkbook, That's funny. That came up in our conversation. We were coming up with the money box or money rules, and someone said day one I'm coming in hard and going foreclosure, but we said talking it out and working it out is almost always better, and maybe having a rule where 30 days of ghosting, all bets are off. You're calling Jeff Watson and the big guns.
We've got a ghost in our market right now.
Just one?
Well, I'm just thinking in our little circle
Yeah.
that shows up at McDonald's every now and then. Oh my goodness! A guy that would show up every now and then at Pete's McDonald's.
Yep.
He ghosted and dodged and ducked and shucked and jived and lied, and now he's going to lose everything.
I think I know
Because
you're
he just
talking
wore
about.
everybody out.
Yeah, I think I know you're talking about.
I know you do.
Yeah.
But when you talk about ghosting, that's what came to my mind.
Yeah. Got to keep the lines of communication open. Got to keep the lines.
On the ghosting.
Yeah.
If somebody's ghosting you, has anybody ever heard of a process server? Those guys are experts at finding people. They do it all day long to serve court, hearing matters. Find a process server, say, find this guy and give him this notice from me, delegate it, and they can don't they always find sooner or later, you pay them, they're going to find that person. It's what they do for a living. Delegate it. Don't put yourself in harm's way.
Piggyback on that one too. The other thing that I found as a lawyer is that if you, instead of just a notice from you, the lender, send it on a lawyer letterhead, a lot of times that gets people's attention a lot more than just a letter from the lender.
Tony, you want to add to that?
For borrowers helping out lenders, know your own numbers. Like when you're coming in with your budget, I say this as politely as I can. As the lender, it's not our job to figure out your numbers and to know, like our job is to figure out what's best for us and to help you along the way. Know your numbers, who your contractors are, and question them on those things. So when you come in and we start asking you questions, it's not a red flag, but it's apprehensive. Like my brain goes, okay, maybe they're not as experienced. If you don't know your numbers or you don't know quite what's going on with your project, oh, I hired somebody. That's great, but make sure you know it because you're the ones that's responsible for it. We're looking at you for answers, and I don't want to track down your contractor to ask them questions about stuff. I want to be able to talk to you. You don't have to know the technicalities of it, but know your numbers and kind of what's going on in there. It's super helpful for us to have those conversations with you because it makes easier answers for you.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, don't inflate your numbers as a borrower. You maybe, if you know that your lender is say 70% LTV and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna say the ARV is a little bit higher so I can get the money I want. You're doing yourself as a borrower a disservice. One, because the lender should check behind you and see if your numbers are right. But even if the lender doesn't do that, you're making a deal that's too skinny. If you're inflating your after repaired value and you don't think you're going to get it or you won't get it, you're too skinny once you've paid the lender and everything else. So don't inflate your numbers. Be honest and transparent because if it's not a deal for your lender, it's probably not a deal for you either, and you've got to be very careful.
Good stuff. I think you stole my PowerPoint for this afternoon. I know. It's all good. That is in my PowerPoint. I can skip that one now, Mary. No. Do you guys, do you have any more you want to add, or do you want to go to Q&A? You guys have any questions for this panel of lenders? Who's got a question? Oh, here we go. Joe, you're a lender too, with Duke Allen and Dealmaker Nosotros, which I love, the first Latino dealmaker group in the nation. Woo! This guy's got great energy.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Guys, so I was just talking here to Ivan as well as how to structure a PML loan. Sometimes you could put multiple lenders in first position, correct? Right. It's possible, right? How do you spearhead that? Are you guys comfortable with having multiple lenders in first position?
Oh, Jeff Watson, why don't you take that one? Oh, you don't have a mic, do you? So you're going to learn a lot of different ways to structure this week.
I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what's in the documents that I'm covering tomorrow and on Friday. There's ways to do it where everybody's listed based upon their percentage of contribution as a tenant in common, identifying their percentage, and then we have two magic things. One is a very short little French term, pari passu, which means shoulder to shoulder or side by side. And then we also have a secondary document, an intercreditor lending agreement. Okay? Now, I'm going to share one quick story about that, and then we'll let it go. I'm the borrower. One of the lenders called me and said, Jeff, do you have a draft of an intercreditor lending agreement you could send to me so that I could prepare it for the other co-lenders I have in the deal with you? And I said, sure. But I said, I just have to tell you the humor of the deal. You're asking me that you're going to create a document in case I default on you.
Intercreditary? Oh. I just closed out a loan with Lauren McCarley. Are you in here? Yep. The one we just closed out with you late last week was intercreditary. I don't know if you know that, but she was great to work with as a borrower, by the way. Wave your hand from Alabama. Here you go.
I was just to say, when I've done this before, if I've spearheaded the deal and I have multiple lenders in it, I'm the main lender who found the deal, vetted the deal. I will often get the other lenders to give me their power of attorney so that I can then babysit the deal, foreclose on the deal. And we all agree with that ahead of time, and we have that in an agreement, but I usually get the power of attorney to deal with it. Same in wraps. If I'm the wrap lender, I'm always going to have my underlying lender give me a power of attorney to take everything on, including foreclosing the first, which is my underlying if I need to.
POAs and lending. All right, Yvonne. Hang on, I'm coming, Yvonne. Yvonne from Dealmaker Orlando. Here we go.
Jeff and Mary, just to follow up on that, can the owner as well be a partner in first position? Take a percentage.
Let's see. All right, hang on. Woo! Yeah, I am running now. So go ahead and say why.
Let Mary go first.
Don't just say no.
Jeff, Mary, Jeff. No, so, I mean, I'm not sure why, but you already own the property. Why would you take an equity position on a property you own? Oh, the previous owner. I thought you meant the person buying it. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Sure. Yeah, you can do that. Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
We just added that real quick. This is like a.
Pardon me?
You can share first if you want.
You could set it. It's a you're talking in a seller finance situation, adding the seller as a co-lender pari passu to the other private lenders for the new buyer. Yeah, you can do that. That's going to take some interesting negotiations, but yeah, you can do it. I know Josh has got something to say about it.
Just kind of more of a question. Would that be something you could structure like in a Pete Fortunato deal where the owner seller finances but then has an equity share note on the back end with the other co-lenders?
Yes, unless it's Bill Cook, and then he's going to want an option instead of the other. Okay.
Just real quick on keeping the co-lenders in first position, we've also used a tactic where there's one mortgage and more than one note at different percentages, and the points come back to whoever's, what do you call it, the lead lender?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's another strategy.
Yeah, we've done that.
No, I'm working on the next session. I'm always one ahead. We got to get Jason, get him ready. So.
We're doing IRAs next, right?
Yes. Oh yeah. You guys ready for that one? All right. Who else has a question for this amazing group? Right here is good. A little closer. I mean, Randy's done a lot of lending. Here you go.
Yeah, question. There was comments from Jeff, the other Jeff, about the fees that are included when there's a default. And I was curious if there's any multiple on the fee for the extension. Like, do you do a multiple of the extension fee if they've defaulted to add up more of the fees? You could? If so, what would the recommendation be?
Well, I think every deal depends, right? I mean, to me, there's not necessarily one size fits all. I've done everything from 1%, 1 point for a 6-month extension, to a point a month, to 2% for 3 months. It just kind of depends for me on the deal. I usually do not do much of a default interest rate, but I'm now going to change my documents. I did it when I first started 20-some years ago, and then I got out of the habit. But I do think that a higher default interest rate, potentially along with an extension fee, is a great incentive for a borrower to try to get it done. And Jeff Shahusky's right. He said, however much time you give something is how much time people will take to do it. So I had a new borrower recently that asked me for 8 months instead of my normal 6, and I said, yeah, okay, you got 2 properties I'm loaning on. That might take a little bit longer. Well, he's moving slow as molasses. And I think it's because he thinks he's got all this time. And I wish that I had said, no, it's 6 months and the interest rate's going to go up, because he could get it done faster. He's just not.
How does usury affect that, your fees and things like that?
Have fun.
Let's talk about fees. I don't have any fees as a private money lender, but I should. But my lender should not.
You have fees that you just don't know about when I do your docs. Those are fees that are paid to the hardworking staff in Conneaut, Ohio, that create these documents. Yeah, they're for Debbie. Next month is 17 years that she and I worked together. Yeah, amazing lady. All right, so fees. Every state's different when it comes to your usury law. Some states have them, some states don't. Some states have them different for commercial versus consumer. We're not going to do anything about consumer, so just take that off the table. Every state's going to have case law interpreting how they do the calculation as to what is included in how they get to usury or not. So you're going to have to get somebody local to do that. So, which is a really good point here. The docs you're getting from me, you're only getting in the format you have them in your workbook, so that you have to retype them and think about them, and so that you have to go to your local attorney and say what needs to be adjusted or changed. Okay? Do not just use them straight up. Please do not. So that's all negotiable regarding the fees. Every county's going to be different. The best way to answer it. I think that fees are a nice little profit center, and I'm willing to let them accrue if there's good equity in the deal. Just like I'll do an extension if there's good equity, because I don't necessarily want my money back, because it's still earning at a decent interest rate or a default interest rate. So it really is a deal by deal by deal basis. And if you're lending wisely at 70 or 65% LTV on down, you've got a little breathing room. I hope that answers the question.
So there's fees that somebody will agree to pay you, and then there's the fees that you're willing to stand in front of a judge and say are okay. And they might not be the same, right? The optimistic borrower comes into your office, is willing to sign or whoever it may be, they pretty much would sign anything, right? At the point when they're sold on the deal, Jeff C. was mentioning about, oh, I got to do this deal I'm going to make. They've already taken that money and spent it with their wife to go on vacation. You're going to put stuff in front of them, and they're not going to even realize what who amongst us, does anybody else besides me have problems reading all the documents? I'll give you a tip. Throw it into ChatGPT and say, tell me everything that's wrong with this document, by the way, if you're lazy. But be careful, and I think Jeff C. talked about it a lot. They may agree to all sorts of egregious commercial fees, but if you live in a place like I do, my counties surrounding central Ohio are great counties. Columbus, Ohio is turned into Seattle, Washington. You may be in a commercial agreement, but you may be standing in front of a liberal judge who's used to residential transactions, and they see these big fees that you're charging. It might be, it's great for negotiating, right? A deal's going south, say, okay, I'll waive these fees. But it's a different story when you're standing in front of a judge and they find out the highest rate allowed by law and 10 points and this and that. You might find yourself blushing.
I'm going to add something to that. One of the things I have often done, if I think there's something like that in my document that I don't want a borrower to say, oh, it was in 50 pages of legalese, I didn't know it was there. I will actually highlight that in a separate paragraph, and I will go over it with them, and I'll make them initial it, that they've read it and they understood it, that one specific sentence or paragraph, so that if we do end up in court, they can't get up there and say, it was over my head, I didn't understand. Well, this right here, you said that this has been discussed, you understand it, you initialed it. Is that your initials? Yes, it is. Are you sure? Because you remember that conversation? So that's what I do. It may or may not work, but I think it's helpful.
Okay, Tony, give us an idea of some of the fees that a typical hard money lender will charge that a typical private money lender like me is missing.
See, there you go. So, there's different opportunities. The one thing that Randy has been very smart about it telling us is we put the risk on the borrower, which means we're going to put as much cost on the borrower as possible. So you're going to have appraisal fees, you're going to have lawyer fees, you're going to have document fees. One of the things that we saw that we just changed recently was using, we got our own documents created, and we started using ours. Now we do send it to an attorney that reviews them every time to make sure we use his malpractice insurance, but that's a revenue generator from us and then for us, and so that helps with that. And then we do, for us, I said, we have a renewal fee has nothing to do. So if somebody comes up on their note and they're needing an extension or renewal, beyond the normal just origination fee and interest, we charge them an additional fee to do the renewal. Paperwork, things like that, but we charge it up front so that they pay us, that they are saying, hey, we're committed to doing this renewal with you guys as well. So
if somebody needs an extension,
mm-hmm.
they bought into your loan at 5 points,
mm-hmm.
they do an extension, they pay another 5 points.
So it depends on how long they want to go. If they want to do 3 months, so we can at the end of, so for us, I said, that's how we structure it, is if somebody comes up at the end of their note, they want to do another note, we could lend that money to somebody else, or we could relend it to them. It's up to them. They're the ones that made the agreement with us, and we're loving helping them out, but we're not necessarily going to suffer on the not being able to lend to somebody else kind of participation event. So we enjoy that part.
What you enjoy charging 10 points?
We don't charge 10 points. We earn 10 points.
You think this week maybe you want to get to know Tony a little better?
Talk to Randy. He's in the back of the room. He's brilliant.
Randy, oh.
Yeah, he finally got to make it. So.
All right. Al back there knows how to ramp up his ROI too, believe me. Am I right, Al? Are you normally in like the 40 to 50% ROI, Al? 30? 25, 30? Not bad.
It's almost as egregious as the lawyers, Jesus. Just get you there, just to get you there, Jeff.
All right, hang on. Hang on, can you catch a touchdown? Go Bills. Huh?
So I appreciate you saying that. He used the word egregious. And that part, I said I smile when I hear that, because I tend to say, I ask people, I said, when they say that to me, I said, so why do you go to the gas station and ever buy a Coke or a soft drink? I said, why would you? I said, why don't you go to the grocery store and buy a big case of them at discount, take it home, put it in your refrigerator, and then wait on it to cool, and then get your glass, and then pour it and drink it. Because you want what you want, and you're willing to pay for what you're willing to get. So it's not an egregious thing. We're providing a service, and they're excited to pay for it. Excited to.
I like it. I won't tell you what I paid for that Diet Coke in the hotel 2 hours ago. Woo-wee! Inflation. All right. Oh, no, we got to let John finish up here. You guys enjoying this?
Yeah, that was a joke, by the way. Anyway, so what I want to know is, so Jeff, you mentioned, in the spirit of what Jim was saying, what's different and what, you said you would go on to the bank and just to have that experience. And I was curious what you did find that was different. Like, what kind of things did you find that was different from your banking experience versus the private?
Okay. Now here, can you catch the pass, Mr. Ohio State Buckeyes? If I include some, can I put some chicken nuggets on top?
Chicken strips. I like the chicken strips. All right. The process was a lot longer. And the one thing that really surprised me was all of the mandatory waiting times. Private lenders can fund, boom. If you've got a personal property trust or if you've got an LLC, I'm not going to point too closely at people who I know have that kind of stuff. They can fund same day. The bank is 5 business days because they got to let this Dodd-Frank nonsense tickle through the system. That was one of the big things. The other thing is the tediousness of the underwriting. They wanted to see a lot of stuff. Now, I'm blessed that I have a fantastic, amazing assistant that can track every penny that's come into that law office in the last 17 years and every penny that's come into any one of my rental businesses. And so it's just a matter of which button in QuickBooks she pushes for what to spit out that we scan and we send, and it's done. And I've got a fantastic accountant with online tax returns. So it's just a matter of how much paperwork I had to shove at them and how long it took for them to digest it. Those were the big differences. It was 95% bureaucratic. Yeah.
All right, we got time for one more, and then we're back on schedule. But we're going to have more Q&A in a little while. We have like 2 more panels today and more Q&A. Okay. I do. Do you have a question? There you go.
I'm just, it's about the usury rates. Like in our state, it's 9%, or
What state are you
higher if both parties agree.
What state?
Whatever that means. Oh, Oregon, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. But on top of that, my main question is points. Is that factored into that usury, or are they separate? I don't really know how points are. Like if you're already at 9% and you charge 2 points, and
I can make an argument either way. And then if you're going to charge points the way
Here you go.
Mary and I learned from Dykes Botiford.
How do you charge me? You're going to go over this tomorrow.
I will go over this, yeah. My slides aren't as good as Bill Cook's on this, but anyhow, on that topic, it depends on how you treat the points. Do you collect them at closing? Do you collect them when the loan's paid off? Do you roll them into the loan? There's 3 different ways of doing points. And so how you do it's going to affect the mathematical calculation. So you're collecting it at the end, so it's usually, then it's going to probably be treated more like interest. But if I take the points and I roll it into the loan, then it's like I can make a better argument that it's extra principal, even though it's really interest on air. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This Josh guy is pretty sharp. I'm catching that. Here you go. Josh, what was the question?
If you were worried about the usury, what would be to collect it up front or at the end?
I say up front. I'm not an attorney or half as smart as Jeff, but up front and call it a discount. So then it's not something earned and it's not interest. Just like if you were to buy an existing note at a discount, I haven't heard of anyone calculating that into the return that would then be considered usury. Does that make sense?
So we're going to deal with usury again tomorrow, because if you're in Oregon and the statute says 9% or as otherwise agreed, I'm going to show you a clause that's in almost every one of the commercial notes in your workbook that is going to give you a lot of antacid to solve that heartburn.
Well, if they both sign a note, isn't that as they'd have agreed?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so if they've both signed, the lender and the borrower have signed the same documents, they've negotiated a rate, that is as they've both agreed. So to me, that takes it out of the 9% right there.
Last conversation I had with Dykes Botiford put something in my head I'll never forget. Like, think about how you would explain it to a judge. Amen. Think about how you'd explain it to a judge. When you're going to help them and offer olive branches, document all that. Say, I'm trying to help them here, I'm trying to help them there. They're running me through the mud. And he said it in much more eloquent terms. Try to make you look like the victim. Because in this society, it's kind of, instead of the poor old borrower that you're taking advantage of.
Perspective to have, right? All right, question from the amazing Bill Cook. How many of you guys know Bill Cook? Woo!
We both like applause about the same amount. Quick question. This is a great panel up front. How do you track your notes? In other words, you're loading something in, but sometimes people are paying late. Late fees are added. Sometimes you have to modify the note. So rental rate, the interest is increased. Points are added. So how do you know what they paid in principal? How much do they pay in interest? What is the current balance for the year and total on the loan? What are y'all using to track?
I mean, mine are all interest only. How about your guys's on these short-term loans? So there's no amortization on mine. And I'm using Buildium for tracking and online payments personally. But I will say, Paul White, where are you? Has an amazing system. You want to stand up and tell everybody the name? REI Copilot. I think we'll do all of that and more. Correct, Paul? REI Copilot.
We built our own back office system through Airtable, so we track all that through our own methods. But we have an amazing team back in Chattanooga that's taking care of that for us, and we just have columns and systems in place for it. Yeah.
So for the past 20 years, I've just used me and a little old Excel spreadsheet and put everything in there. And I do just interest only, so I don't amortize my loans. Now I just signed up for the mortgage office, TMO, and I'm going to be tracking everything in that software. It's called the Mortgage Office, and there's different softwares that can track loans, and it'll show you, like, if you have investors or other capital partners that are getting different interest rates, it'll show you how much you pay those investors. It'll tell you if payments are late, not late. I mean, I'm just getting trained on it, so I don't know it very well yet. It's called the Mortgage Office, and it was ASB Network is their emails. ASB Network. Yeah, hard money lenders use it, mortgage people use it. So I interviewed a lot of people, Wendy Sweet, Jeff C., you use that, right, Shusky? Do you use it? Anyway, I talked to a lot of different lenders, and this was the one that most people were using. And when I realized that just by myself, I generated like $7.5 million worth of loans last year, I was like, I probably should go off my Excel spreadsheet and maybe get a better software. So, because it's just me for 20 years, and now, so now I have TMO, Mortgage Office.
$7.5 million. Rita, you have a quick announcement. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Come on up, Rita.